If we haven't met, I'm Jennifer Elliott, and this is Yin. Yin for a wonderful evening. We're doing liver and gallbladder meridian lines, or what that means to you is inner thighs, outer hips. So that's what we'll get started with. I've got a timer on my phone, and so it's got a nice little bell that will give us our time here. And so our first pose is going to be 5 minutes, and we're just going to start in a reclined butterfly. Any version of that butterfly you'd like. I'm going to use my 2 blocks under my knees, but you have lots of different ways to set up a butterfly. However you'd like, just be comfortable, whatever that means for you. And what can be comfortable for a few breaths is not necessarily comfortable for 5 minutes, which is how long we're going to be in this pose. So for an example, maybe you don't necessarily use blocks underneath the knees when you are in your reclined butterfly. But let's say that you did that, and after maybe a couple of minutes, you started to feel this in your lower back. So if that's you, you would guide your legs together or just replace those props underneath. So that may help. So however you've decided to begin in your reclined butterfly, go ahead and get that set up. And just take a few moments to feel the earth beneath you. Relax the jaw, soften around the eyes. And as we move through the liver and gallbladder meridian lines, we're trying to move into a place of compassion and being at ease in our internal environment. And so it's nice to have a baseline, and so as you tune in, you turn in, just notice what's happening within. How are your emotions? Do they feel up and down? Do they feel pretty steady? Both are fine. You're just observing. You're just noticing. And on the inner landscape, you might also notice your thoughts. You might notice any physical sensations you already have. You're not trying to change anything unless you need to. You're just setting that baseline. We're just seeing where we've started in our practice. And continue to soften everything. So notice the face, the forehead, the temples, the cheekbones. Just feel it get real soft, relaxed. If you have access to an eye pillow or piece of clothing you can slide over the eyes, go ahead and do that. And a little bit of weight, like an eye pillow or clothing on the forehead, will just naturally tell the nervous system to soften and relax. And then begin to observe the quality of your breath. Now let's begin by taking a nice, smooth inhale through the nose. Open the mouth and let it out. Again, in through the nose. Open the mouth and let it out. One more, in through the nose. Hold the breath. Sip a bit more breath in through the nose. Sip a bit more breath in. Open the mouth and let it out. Then take an inhale through the nose and an exhale back out. And as you find your normal breath and sort of checking into how you're feeling, some of you might remove the props if you're feeling like the body is ready to go a little deeper. If you went too deep too fast, you might be adding props back. We have a little over a minute here. And so make those final adjustments. And then commit to stillness for these last 10 relaxed breaths. If you feel any discomfort at your lower back, that's when you would want to make changes, like propping the knees or bringing them together. But otherwise, a little Discomfort or a little bit of tension is okay as long as it's not giving you any signals of injury. Last breath. Okay, take your hands to your outer knees. Physically guide your knees together. Take just a moment. Take the feet wider, the knees fall into one another. Just let the inner hips relax. And then draw the knees into your chest. Give yourself a nice hug. Curl your forehead up to meet the knees. Let the shoulders rest down the back. And then lower yourself down to the floor. Take your hands on your knees. Cup your knees, fingertips face your toes. You're going to pull your knees to your chest. Push your knees away from your chest. Pull and push a couple of times. And then the next time you push your knees away from you, split them apart and circle them back around. Push, split, and circle. So as you do this, we're really just trying to warm up, lubricate the hip joints. And I also like this because then you can really see how mobile your hips are. Sometimes we get really stuck into thinking we're not flexible enough, and it can literally just be the shape of the joints. How wide or shallow is the hip socket? What about the head of the femur? So let's go the other way. Pull the knees in, windshield wiper around, just moving into those hip sockets. You can tell that those hips maybe get a little bit more mobile as that synovial fluid in the joints gets a bit more viscous. Move the knees towards the armpits, hands on top of the shins. Scrunch up the toes, roll around the ankles. You'll hear some cracks and pops, but then as we warm the joints, that'll go away. Slide the arms inside of the knees, reach for the feet, and the soles of the feet face the ceiling in Happy Baby. So if Happy Baby is not for you, or you're not quite there yet, hold the backs of your calves, the backs of your knees. You just want the knees wider than the torso. We're not going to be here as long. I'm just going to set the timer for a minute, just so that we have that going. So if you're in your Happy Baby, go ahead and get started. Otherwise, I'm going to set my timer for a minute here. You might even gently rock side to side, sort of massaging out the kidney bands. And then find yourself at center. We're looking for the soles of the feet maybe to face the ceiling. Shins are perpendicular, and the knees are going a little wider than the torso. See if you can lightly press the feet into the hands if you're there, letting the sacrum ground. I remember one time I had just done a really big ride. I cycled like, I don't know, 40 or 50 miles. This is a while ago. I haven't done that in a while. And then I came to class, and this was one of the first poses that the teacher did. And it was so hard for me. My hip flexors were so done. So that may be the case for you as well. Let's set the left foot onto the floor. We're going to stay in Happy Baby on the right side. And I'm keeping the left knee bent so I can just work on this right side. Maybe nudge the right thigh a little wider and gently guide that leg down. And I actually have a block here. And if you have a bolster, that works too. I actually like to really rest the top of my thigh on that prop. So we're going to be here a little longer. I'm going to increase this to 2 minutes. And when we're moving into these poses, the poses are not specific. I've chosen to sort of put them together in a particular sequence, but when we're moving into the liver and gallbladder meridians, we're targeting inner thighs and outer hips. So our target is inner thighs. And so that's the experience that we hope to find here. So if it's not in this pose, feel free to change it. You might flip this over and take like a dragon lunge, a wide lunge. So don't get too stuck into the poses. There's lots of other options. Some of you can straighten that left leg out. So it's just an option if you're not ready for that. Feel free to skip it. If you don't know what a dragon lunge is, you would come up, for those of you wanting an alternative, maybe pad the back knee, and you could take a wide lunge, maybe even opening to get into the inner thigh. So again, these are options for you. All right, we're more than halfway through. Pardon me, only about 45 seconds left. Your last couple of breaths. All right, go back to happy baby on both sides. If you had a prop underneath the hip, just remove it and see if there's any difference. I actually already feel a lot more sort of space in that right hip as it drops down. So you're gonna hold the left foot in happy baby, or you've made a change in your poses. That's up to you. Set your right foot onto the floor, knee bent. Just give yourself a few moments. We don't want, I see this a lot in classes where the foot starts to move out to the side. We will stretch the inner thigh in that way, but keep the knee bent and instead feel like you're trying to guide the knee to the floor next to your torso. Now we're not gonna get there, but that's your visual. Or you flipped it, you're in your dragon lunge. Okay, so staying with our 2 minutes. When I teach my trainings or when I'm doing this sometimes in class, I may not tell you what we're working as far as the meridians, because I want you to sort of not be influenced by what I'm telling you. And at the end, I might ask you how you felt or what you were thinking. But since it's not training and we're all together, I'll tell you, you may sometimes in these poses feel frustration or agitation. As we work the liver meridian, we're sort of working that idea of moving from anger to compassion. And so sometimes that may come out as being uncomfortable or not relaxed in our skin and our internal environment. So if those things come up, no big deal. Notice them. Know that that's our body's way of getting our attention. Maybe straighten that back leg, that right leg. And if anything ever feels too intense, physically, emotionally, you just back off. You just take a break for a few breaths. And join us again when you're ready. Oh, that went fast. We've got just a couple breaths left. I love the timer. Time is so relative, right? But we've got our timekeeper here with us. All right, one last time, go back to happy baby on both sides, just to sort of be even. It's nice to have a little symmetry, and then just feel, is it still one side a little bit more mobile or open than the other? And then gently guide the legs together. Give yourself a nice hug. Set your feet down onto the ground. You can grab your strap. And I have a block I'm going to use just because I'm not going to move as deep as I can into this, but we're stretching into the inner thigh again. So I'm going to take the strap up. I have a loop from an earlier class this week. I'm just going to leave it. And as you take your leg up towards the ceiling, using the strap or holding the leg, whatever you'd like, we're going to open it out to the right because we're still targeting the inner thighs. So I'm using my block kind of like a ramp. I'm actually pretty close to my wall, so I'm going to use that as well. And the main thing is that we're stretching the inner thigh without sort of leaning over to the right side. So I'm going to add to our time. Just 30 seconds. We'll be here 2.5 minutes. An example would be if I leaned too far over, I would sort of tip over. So I'm going to find that I'm nice and level in that left side and then just open from there. And I'm actually close enough to the wall, I don't need this prop. If you want to go deeper, instead of trying to get the right leg down to the ground, maybe try to guide it a little bit more behind you towards the head side of your room, of your mat. And allow the eyes to close. And see if you can't really investigate the experience. So for an example, for me, I feel stretching on my inner thigh, but if I'm really paying attention, I'm feeling these little micro movements within the tissues where the muscles are sort of trying to relax, but they don't really want to. And you can see that they're in conflict with one another. It's on a very small level. It might not even be anything you notice. So see if you can check in, see what's happening for you. Do you feel the tissues wanting to release? Do they feel a little resistant? And then add your breath to that exploration. So take an inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Exhale out the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 4. Inhale for 4. And exhale for 4. All right. Bring yourself to center. And then earlier, if you were here before class started, I mentioned we sort of get into the IT bend. We'll do a little bit of that here. We might end up doing it double. So staying with the right leg, you're going to take the straps into the left hand and just internally rotate the leg a little bit so your toes point at your left shoulder. Keep the right hip on the ground and just cross the right leg over the body just a little bit. You'll probably feel this. It's quite powerful. I'm going to set our timer. Oh, it's already on 2.5 minutes, so we're going to keep that. So again, your right hip is as on the floor as you can get it. Cross the right leg just another inch to the left. Keep internally rotating, so just a little bit of movement. Cross another inch, and it's just small movements so you can find that sweet spot where you're stretching the IT band on the outside. Now, the IT band is not a muscle. It's really tight sort of tendinous, ligamentous fibers, but you can start to affect the tissues that sort of connect to it. Maybe cross another inch. The IT band goes from the I to the T, so from the ilium, which is sort of the top of your hips, to the tibia, which is your shin bone. So you may feel that anywhere in the whole outer leg. Rotate it in just a little bit more. Maybe you cross a little bit more. And even though my leg seems quite far across the body, I've got my right hip mostly on the ground. So it's not a full twist, it's more about that IT band area. Maybe across another inch. Work on internally rotating that leg, so pointing your toes at the left shoulder. All right, less than a minute left. All right, last couple of breaths. Okay, bring yourself to center. Lower the leg down. Close the eyes a moment. For me, I already feel sort of nice and jello-y on that whole right side. The left side feels very fixed and rigid. So we'll do those two poses on the other side. So left foot into the strap. And again, we're going to move out to the left. I'm using my blocks. So the way I like to do it is I open to the left. The hard edge of the block is kind of uncomfortable, so then I just tip it on its side like a ramp. And that becomes a little bit more comfortable. So our target is the inner left thigh. If there's a different way that you want to get into it, that's fine. Close the eyes. Travel within. I'm just laughing because, you know, our brain always wants to recognize patterns. That's what we do. I've been a little tired of doing everything online or on screens, so I bought a puzzle yesterday, so I had something different to do. My husband and I were working on it, and I was laughing because we were doing the border first and then sort of working from the outside in, and I thought, oh my goodness, even a puzzle can be sort of equated to how we think about yoga and how we think about sort of moving from the physical to the more subtle, so moving from the outside in. And so we do that here. We sort of have our physical pose, we experience it, we find it, but then we're really using those sensations to help bring our mind inward. So find the physical sensation, use that to pinpoint your attention, and then notice what you feel behind that. Get more subtle. Feel the sensation, notice the breath. What about your thoughts or intuition? Continue to move from the outside in. Your last 5 breaths here. All right, move slow to center, take your time. And then the straps are gonna be in your right hand. Internally rotate your leg. So for me, just that rotation, I already start to feel it in that IT band area, that outer leg. We'll set our timer, staying on that 2.5 minutes. And then find these small movements. So sometimes we feel like it has to be this big, visible expression of a movement in order to find any sort of success in it or to sort of get deeper. But in yin, a lot of times smaller movements is greater improvement. So internally rotate the leg, keep the hip on the ground, cross just a little bit to the right. I only crossed maybe a couple of inches, and I very much feel this in the outer leg. And then you just explore for you, little by little, inch by inch, step by step. Add or remove. I'm trying to find that sweet spot. For me right now, it's here. You can move another little inch if you'd like, or back off some. Keep trying to internally rotate, that subtle movement of pointing your left toes to your right shoulder. You can't tell because I hyperextend my knees, but my knee is just ever so slightly bent just so that I'm not locking back into place. We've got about a minute left. Find your breath. Your body is sort of saran wrapped in fascia, so it's underneath the skin, and it's around the muscles and around the bones, the organs, the joints. So even if it doesn't feel like you're having that direct effect where you want it, we are affecting those layers. We're sort of tugging on that interconnected inner web that we have within the body. All right. Bring your leg up, lower it down. Just give yourself a moment, see how you feel. Close the eyes, and hopefully it feels slightly more even. Okay. So take a few moments as you are. I'm going to demo and give a few options for our next pose. So I'm rolling to the side to come up. I'm going to move into frog. Frog is not for everyone. So if you have knee sensitivities, low back sensitivities, that may not be your pose. So I'm going to use the wall first as a demo just because this is here. So our target is still inner thighs. So if you have a wall or something you could put your feet on, you can do malasana on the wall, which is nice. You can even use your arms on the inner thighs as a little bit of added weight. You can also do malasana seated. You can sit just in general, or sometimes it's nice to sit on a prop. So again, malasana or even butterfly pose is fine. So you're welcome to do that. I'm going to do frog. So we're here like 4 minutes, so that may help you decide. We're adding on to our time. And the way I'm going to do frogs, I need a blanket. I need a little extra padding on my knees. So I'm going to take the blanket wide, make it wider than my mat. Knees are about as wide as the mat to start. Feet can be together or wide. This is your pose, so you have to listen to your body to decide. And then you can find your way onto your forearms. Start the timer, so we're not here longer than we need. Did I say 4 minutes? I'm suddenly questioning my own pose. Okay. So when we add that time, we may notice that if we go too deep too fast, our body will start to back off, will start to brace or hold against the pose. So be in a place that you can maybe move a little bit deeper. Let me adjust my blanket here. But you're not fighting to stay there. It's okay to be a little uncomfortable. It's okay to breathe into it. But we don't want to force ourselves into something that's really not for us. For example, sometimes I have lower back concerns, and so this sometimes can be a little bit too much of the belly dropping for my lower back. So if that's you, you can place props like a bolster or if you have blocks underneath you, those are nice ways to give yourself a little extra support. And if you have the props like I do, you might even add them under the forehead to release. Once you find a pose, you're really just trying to commit to stillness. We're about halfway through this pose now. So are you in a place that's okay for your body? Can you commit to the next 2 minutes in this pose, breathing into it? And as we start to come on to our final minute, in a moment I'll tell you when that starts. Maybe count your breath like your counting sheet, not to fall asleep, but use it as a meditation. A minute is around 10 relaxed breaths. So as we start here, you can go ahead and start now. Count your breath. Can you stay present for all 10? When the timer goes off, don't move. You want to come out of this very slowly. So if you were at the wall, just gently slide the legs up the wall. If you're where I am, you can just gently slide those legs behind you. Move your props out of your way and just very gently lie on your belly. And if you were in Malasana, you can stay where you are, take your own rebound pose. So just a couple of breaths here. All right. And this is our last one of the inner thighs. So we're going to move into a split leg stretch. If you're at the wall and you want to take your legs up the wall and split, this is really nice, especially if you have any low back sensitivities. I'm going to do Upavishta Konasana or dragonfly pose. It's a nice split leg stretch. Or this could be a traditional butterfly. So I'm actually going to start our timer because we're up to 5 minutes now. This is our longest pose. I'll start it. Make any decision you want with your inner thighs. And then I'm going to give an option here. So let's say if you're like me, you hyperextend your knees or you have knee sensitivities and this really starts to bother you. So you can grab a blanket, unfold it one, And then with that long side, you'll just roll it up. And you can do any thickness you'd like, but that can go underneath the knees. And so sometimes that's all that's needed is a little bit of support. And there we go. As we move to these inner thighs, just notice how you're feeling. And again, that emotional component of our liver and gallbladder meridians. You might feel resentment or frustration, chronic anger, rebellion, all those things you might have. And so the other side of the coin is finding a sense of calmness, clarity, sort of moving past those reactivities, right? We're looking to be more responsive, less reactive. You can imagine we've all heard to take 10 deep breaths when we get upset about something. And really what that is it's just taking a moment to pause, to create some separation from the initial hit, the initial emotional experience. And then once we've had a moment to let it pass, things might feel a little bit different. So the same thing can be with yin. You might feel an experience that you really have a reaction to. Either you want to go deeper, you want to back off. And instead, just be responsive, be neutral. So find your breath, take sort of a mental, emotional step back, and then you might find that it wasn't as intense as you thought, or you might be able to move a little bit more deeply into it. We're about more than halfway through our pose. We just have 2 minutes left. So see if for these 2 minutes you can just explore that being neutral, that neutrality of whatever's coming up, physical, emotional, mental. Then add the breath. Use that as a separation between you and that thing. And then be the observer. Is it different? Is it the same? About 90 seconds left. Five breaths left. Okay. If you're at the wall, slowly use your hand strength to guide the legs together. If you're in the center of the room, or sort of where we are now, go ahead and bring yourself up and then manually guide each leg back. Okay. So good news is we're done with the inner thighs, but You may not be as happy as we move into the outer hips. It might be sort of this bittersweet. So we're going to move into Gomukhasana or shoelace. And so if you're at the wall and you want to stay there, I'm going to give you an option. So if you're at the wall, and that makes more sense on your back or your knees, then just cross knee over knee, legs are straight. And then as you bend the knees, the feet slide down. And you can flex the feet and you're sort of in control of what the experience is. You might even hold your legs. That just takes a little bit more effort on your part. Otherwise, we'll do the pose seated. So finding your right leg over your left, knee over knee. And some of you, the knees will stack quite close. Mine is not like that. I'm going to add a little height on me as well. We're staying with these higher timings. Not quite 5 minutes, so don't worry. We're going to be here 3.5, which is more than enough, I think. And if you have knee sensitivities where having the knee bent is not for you, you can do something similar to like what I did a moment ago with a strap and sort of crossing the leg over. You can work it that way. So again, our target area is outer hip. Less specific is the actual pose. Lots of ways to get there. And you'll get some of the IT band stretching here. There's sort of other tissues and muscles in there that you'll get as well. So if you're doing the pose seated, you can stay seated as I am, or you can shift forward. And deeper isn't always better, or it may not be the experience you're looking for. So shifting forward for me sometimes almost shifts me out of the pose. Oftentimes if I sit upright and really get my hips sort of even, this feels like a different experience, a deeper experience for me. So just explore for you. Hips are level. Arms are optional. I'm skipping them today, but you can always wind them up or do whatever you'd like. And close the eyes. Now about 5 relaxed breaths. It's around 30 seconds. So see if you can count your breath again. If you get distracted or forget, start back over at 1. Now let's see where you get in that breath count, in that meditation of staying present. We have 2 minutes left. Go ahead and begin your breath count if you'd like. Is there anxiety rising up? Is there any sort of sensation? For me, my hip starts to rebel. There's that rebellion. It starts to not want to be here. So for this final minute, can you let go of something? Even if it's just your breath, your exhale. So I'm cracking up in my own body because the whole of me feels very relaxed. But if a body part could scream, it would be this hip, this whole hip the whole time. It's like, no, which cracks me up. So it's very localized. The rest of my body is very relaxed. And so you might notice that in this pose or others as well. So find your way out. Kind of humorous. Our bodies definitely have a mind of their own. So switch to side 2. Again, target is that outer left hip. It may be the same pose. It may be one of the other ones I mentioned. Get yourself set up and then see how you feel on this side. And maybe you notice the same thing I did. Maybe there's many parts of you that feel very relaxed, and maybe there's a couple parts that are unsure of how long they want to stay here. You can also start to see your motivation for movement, or how you have a relationship to discomfort, or to something you might perceive as discomfort. Do you sort of run away from anything that feels mildly uncomfortable? Or are you a sensation junkie? You're always seeking for that deeper stretch, that deeper experience. So no judgment. Your truth is somewhere possibly in the middle, but you find it, see how you feel. We've got about 2.5 minutes left. Now for most of us, the experience will be on the top outer hip. Not everyone though. Some of us it's on the bottom hip. And for me, that same sort of screaming hip is getting me even here. Sometimes that area will call your attention a little bit more, and that's fine. About 1 more minute. Okay, slowly come out. We're going to move to square, or Sukhasana, or double pigeon, any sort of poses similar to that. So the way that I'm going to show you this is we don't want our feet to be close to the groin, which makes our knees look like a heart. We want our feet a little bit away from us, and we're crossing middle of the shins. So really you're trying to stack the knee on top of the foot and vice versa, so that it's more square. So you can sit as you are, you can sit on a blanket. If you feel like you're rounding a lot, that's when you would sit on a blanket. a few of you, probably not my camp today, you'll see why, is that you can move into double pigeon stacking. Now, there's nothing sort of quote wrong with my body. I stretch all the time. I just don't have very open hip joints in this fashion. So this is sort of a perfect pose for me, even if it doesn't visually look like what we might imagine. So you can move into double pigeon, whatever that looks like for you. Just keep the feet flexed. Sukhasana, or if none of these are for you today, thread the needle is a nice option. So we will stay with the 3.5 minutes. We'll be winding down after that. And wherever you are, so you can keep the feet flexed, try to stack as much as you can. You can sit tall or shimmy the sit bones back, and you might shift forward. Now, if you have any low back disc herniations or reasons that forward folding is not for you, then you can do this on your back as thread the needle, or just sit upright, don't fold forward. But we're looking for outer hip experience. For me, if I really get into the breath, so a lot of times I do Samavritti where the breath is even. It's sort of in for 4, out for 4. But if we lengthen the exhale a little longer than the inhale, it's very calming to the mind and nervous system. So it's a way that we can relax in this pose. So we'll take an inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. So get yourself set up. If you want to join the breath, close the eyes. Take an inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Exhale out the nose for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Inhale 4. Exhale 6 or 8. Continue on your own. Let that exhale be longer than the inhale. Right, so as I said before, you might be happy to not be doing inner thighs anymore, but maybe not so happy to move to outer hips. Notice how you're feeling here. So we're switching to the other side, so the other leg is in front or on top. It's our last 3.5 minute hold. And sides are different, so you might have to change the pose. You might have to raise yourself up on some props or lower. Again, target is the outer hips. If you feel this at all in the knees, that's when we make changes. And for this pose, you can continue your long exhales if you'd like. Or you can just start to notice, I sort of play a little game with myself, a mindfulness meditation game, and I call it future, past or present. So oftentimes when you realize that you're in a thought, take a step back from it and just ask yourself, are you in the present, future, or past? Are you in the past and remembering things that have already happened? Are you in the future and planning? Those things haven't happened yet. Or are you present? Are you present as an experience of, oh, that's my hip right now, I feel. So either find your breath and or connect with that little game. And just by taking a step back and noticing, where am I right now? Am I in the future, past, or present? You already start to separate from whatever that thought is, and then you can return to the breath. So we'll take that exercise for these last couple of minutes, but a little over 90 seconds. Last couple of breaths. All right. Slowly back out of that. I don't know if the body wants to move fast anyway. We'll find our way to our back. Let me just adjust my timer here. Okay. Those are our last two poses. So when you get to your back, we're going to move through twisted roots, but we're going to change it just a little bit. So cross your right knee over your left. And instead of moving in a twist, how we might think of it, we're going to pick up the hips, shimmy them a little left, and let the knees fall to the right. So it's, again, sort of outer hip. I'm going to start our timer. We're only here a minute and a half. You can always add props underneath the knees if this is too much. You can kind of feel that outer IT band, TFL area. If this is too much on the lower back, a simple twist is fine. Arms are up to you. I'm reaching mine back just because it gives me a little bit more of an experience on the left side. I do have low back stuff, so I'm using that prop underneath thighs. That just feels better for me. Your last couple breaths. going to slowly unwind. Go slow to center. We're asking our tissues to stress, so not stretch. They are stretching, but we're stressing them in a healthy way. So we want to give them a moment to sort of just find that new normal. Then we're going to cross the left leg over the right, knee over knee. If that was okay for you, move your hips right. You're moving in the direction of the top leg, so it's different than sort of a standard twist. And then maybe you add props that can take care of you. Just a minute and a half, not long, but it can feel long enough. If this is not for you, take any standard twist. And your last 4 or 5 breaths. All right, go super slow. Unwind, help yourself out, come to center. Take a moment to pause. And we're going to finish, if I can find it, with our strap. We're just going to take a final twist, and then we'll move into Savasana. So, similarly to what we did in the beginning, but this time we will cross all the way over. So strap over the right foot, and then take it all the way over. This time you can let the hip stack on top. I like a straight leg here a lot, just because we've been doing so many bent knee versions, but that's up to you. Any twist that you feel good. We're just going to be here for a minute so that we can have a nice Shavasana. And if you press more through that top heel, you may feel it a little bit more in the glutes and the piriformis. If that's too much, then maybe bend the knee a little bit or don't press so much through the heel. So you definitely can control your experience. All right, come to center. You could have stayed there for a very long time. That's feeling nice. Let's switch sides. Left foot in the strap, cross it over, or take your finishing twist. For me today, it's been my whole right side the whole way. And so maybe just do a little body scan. Notice for you, has it been the same side the whole time that's felt rigid or resistant? Has it changed? come to center. Pull your knees into your chest. Take any finishing pose you'd like Apanasana, plow, or even a seated forward fold. We're just essentially going to move ourselves to Shavasana here in a moment. Do your finishing pose, whatever that is for you. We'll be here a few breaths, and then you'll find your way into Shavasana. So find your way into your rest pose. It can even be legs at the wall if you'd like. Add props under the knees. We'll use our timer one last time for Shavasana. We're here 3 minutes. Get comfortable, relax. In the beginning of our practice, I had you sort of just scan the body and find that baseline. And just scan it one more time. Notice what's changed. Where do you have more space or freedom or awareness? What things were calling your attention in the beginning and now don't seem as important? And then let it all fade away. Enjoy these final moments. Shavasana. Start to draw your attention back. Move fingers and toes as you reach up overhead, maybe yawn. Bend your knees, roll to the right. And slowly press upright to your final seat. You come to seated, hands to your heart in gratitude for all the time and effort you've put into you today. Lift your heart, bow your head. Namaste.